Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's a bit of a different one. I'm going to be giving my Premier League table prediction for this season. Now, before we start, I would like to show you a new pillow of mine that I had made. My brother had this, well I had it, my brother had it made for me. 20 quid prank this. I quite liked it. Well, my table will be what people will probably think I'm insane, but this is my opinions. I'm not expecting people to agree with me. In fact, I'd be pretty surprised if people did. But I'm sure Connor will have a different opinion to me. I'm sure people will. Look forward to hearing them. So, first, so here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go from bottom of the table to top, and I'm going to give a reason for each one I do. And it's going to be a brief explanation, and I'm going to try and sum up what I feel for each one. So let's get started. 20th place, I have Fulham. Now, my reason being is that I don't think they should have gone up in the first place. I don't think they were equipped enough. I think they were too inconsistent when they were in the Championship. They got through on the playoffs, which has always been a bit of a lottery. I think if you're talking about the form side, it probably should have been Brentford. However, I can't stand Brentford. I don't like their manager and I don't like their fans. So I'm quite glad it was Fulham. However, I just don't see them surviving. I don't think they're good enough. And the signings that they've made so far don't stand out to me either. So my 20th place is Fulham. 19th, I've got Aston Villa. Now, this isn't out of sort of bias or anything, although a bit of bias I will admit. My reasoning is that, they've hardly improved their side and they don't have a better manager. It's simple as that. Dean Smith isn't a Premier League manager. A lot of Villa fans will claim he is. He just isn't. He's not good enough. He's too stubborn. He's not willing to change. They put in some good performances at the end of last season which helped them stay alive, but they weren't good enough the entire season. And their fans will probably be more than willing to admit that. They just were not good enough all season. And it reflected on their performances, it really did. It was only the last 5 games where they showed up, really. And I think Matty Cash isn't enough, and they haven't made enough good signings to get the ball rolling yet. We'll see for now, but for now I've got Villa in 19th. 18th place, I've got West Ham. Now, West Ham, especially with the Grady Diangana signing go through, have just collapsed recently. They're bored of ruining the club. Their fans are rebelling. Their players are even started rebelling. The club is disjointed. The fans aren't happy. The fans, I've heard multiple say they take the relegation so it bankrupts GSB. And on that point as well, GSB, you're a disgrace. You've ruined that club into the ground. I'm glad we got Grady, but I did feel sorry for their fans. I had no idea what they were thinking. And it looks like the Grady Diangana was actually tipped over the edge of final straw. And I think that it's just going to have too much of a mental impact on the players. So I've had West Ham to finish 18th. Now, 17th place, I have Crystal Palace. Now, Palace, their 8 games in lockdown, they lost 7 and drew 1. Now, I don't care who you are, that is not good enough. And their one standout player, Wilfried Zaha, looks like he's probably leaving this window. And they just don't stand out to me as a decent performer. I just don't think they're quite bad enough to go down. But I just don't see him being good enough. So I've got Crystal Palace in 17th. 16th, I've gone with West Brom. Now, I'd be perfectly happy with 16th this season. I think the aim should be to survive. I think we've made some good signings to start. We need a couple more here and there. We need a goal scorer. Might need another box-to-box midfielder. Kravinovic maybe. Grant. Deeney. Whoever it is. But I think that Bilic is the factor that's going to push us over the line. He knows what he's doing. He's a Premier League manager that we were lucky to have last season. We all know that. And he's just a fantastic manager. He's a fantastic bloke and he will help us get over the line. So and he'll get us some of the results needed. Teams against like West Ham, Villa, Fulham, Newcastle, Southampton, we should be picking up points against these, and I think he will. I think he'll get us to that 40 points that we need to survive, and I think we will finish 16th. 15th, they've got Southampton. Now, Southampton's a bit of a strange one because they have a few excellent players and a lot of poor ones. Those excellent players are so good that it's pushing them to good standards. Now, they started last season terribly, and the 9-0 loss at home to Leicester almost did them a favour, pushed them over. They got that result, angered them. They went and beat Leicester away later in the season, so got their redemption. But I think that Southampton standard sort of bottom half of the table, but nowhere near bad enough to go down. They'll get the results they need. They'll survive. Southampton 15th. 14th, I've got Newcastle. Now, Newcastle did surprisingly well under Steve Bruce. I think everyone pegged them to go down last season, but they did all right. They survived when they needed to, and they're just one of those clubs, a bit like when we played under Tony Pulis. They'll get the bare minimum they need to survive, and anything extra is a reward. They've spent a lot of money. Players like Joel Linton, who only scored 2 league goals last season. I just think that they can improve here and there. Dwight Gale's out for 4 months for them now for an injury. I think that the players that they need to sign are probably more attacking intent. I think that's why they've gone for Callum Wilson. They had a bid accepted earlier today. But I just don't see him touching top half of the table, and I don't see him going down either. So Newcastle 14th. 13th, I've got Brighton. Now, Brighton have made some good signings over the past season. They've signed Adam Lallana. They got Morpay last season. He got 10 goals. They've made some good signings. We played a good pre-season friendly against them. Defensively, they look solid. They managed to tie down Ben White to on deal, which is a great bit of business for them. They're never going to be a team that really pushes the top half of the table because they don't have the financial means to. But they're a good side, and they'll give a few teams a few tough games, and I think that they'll be comfortable this season. So I've got Brighton 13th. 12th, I've got Burnley. Now, Burnley were a very good side towards the back end of last season. They're the only side in the league that took points at Anfield. Defensively, they're solid, proper Brexit club. They work hard. The team's got a good work ethic. Jay Rodriguez, a fan favourite at the Albion. Hope to see him this season, as long as he doesn't score against us. But I like Burnley. I like they're an old-fashioned club. I've never been Turf Moor, so I'm hoping that fans will be back by then, so I can go. But Burnley, I don't see them being troubled for relegation this season. But I think they won't touch much of the top half either, but I think they'll do well enough to have a comfortable finish. Burnley 12th. 11th, I've got Sheffield United. Now, Sheffield United exceeded everybody's expectations last season. They finished 9th, which I think any Sheffield United fan would have took 17th when they went up, to be honest. They were fantastic last season. But you could see towards the end of last season they were starting to get figured out. And I think that's what cost them their Europa League place. But I think that the confidence are from last season, and they've got some very good players. They're starting to attract some, because they're a big club. They'll be able to attract some big players now they've got that first season over the line. I think that Sheffield United will have a good mid-table finish. 11th place, Sheffield United. 10th, Everton. Now, Everton have made some good signings over this summer. Elan, and they've got a good manager, Carlo Ancelotti. But I think that for Everton, with the sort of rot that they've been in the past couple of years, a bit not doing as well as they should be, I think that this now could be the start of a transition period for them. I think that 10th is probably not as good as they could be getting, but I don't see them pushing yet because it's going to take a season or two for them to get a bit more fluidity with their effectively brand new side over the past couple of years. But you can see that under Carlo Ancelotti, things were starting to improve, and they're going to be a tough team to beat this season. Now, our first game away is at Goodison Park. I'll take a point and run with it for that one because that is a very tough game. Got Everton 10th. 9th, this is my first sort of one where people really question. I've got 9th, Leicester. Now, Leicester, you could tell when lockdown they weren't the same side. And they just weren't good enough for most of the lockdown. And I think that the thing is with Leicester, they were starting to get figured out, and people were starting to pick up on some of the things they were doing. Brendan Rodgers, fantastic manager. They won't be troubled at all with even the prospect of relegation. I don't think they'll be touching Europa League. I think they'll get a few good wins against teams they should beat here and there. I think they're just teams that are better than them this season, and teams that will be able to overpower them in every way. Ninth, I've got Leicester. Eighth, now this is arguably one of my biggest calls. Eighth, I've got Leeds United. Now, Leeds are 90% of this is down to their manager. Marcelo Bielsa is, without a doubt, I'd say, in the top 5 managers in the Premier League, and one of the best in the world, in my opinion. I think the way he plays football, the Bielsa press, the way he gets people the best out of players, he turned an average Championship side into a near unstoppable one in 2 seasons. And I unlike most people, I quite like Leeds. I have a lot of family that support them. I have a real soft spot for Leeds. I'm glad they went up with us, and I think that Leeds will really put some teams to the sword this season. Leeds are going to be a club this season that will batter a few teams. They will also get battered a lot. But I think they'll win more than they lose. I think they'll get a lot of draws against big clubs. For example, I've called them to get a draw at Anfield first day of the season. I think that's a good sign. I think that Liverpool will take them for granted. That'll be reflected later with where I've placed Liverpool in my table. But I think Leeds will be the surprise package of the season. I think they'll finish 8th. I think they'll have a really, really strong season. Leeds United, 8th place. 7th, I've gone with Arsenal. Now, the thing is, they finished 8th last season. I can't see much improvement in their squad, to be honest. Yeah, they've picked up a couple of trophies here and there, but the Premier League's a different ball game. And they're going to be... I can't see in trouble in the top 6 in the slightest. I don't think they're good enough. I think they drop silly points here and there. I don't like them. I won't forgive them for that dreadful performance they're putting against the Villa, which effectively secured them survival. I don't think they're good enough. They're too inconsistent, and that's why I don't think they'll get a Europa League spot. They could get the FA Cup, but I don't see that happening either. Arsenal, 7th. Sorry, Arsenal fans. 6th, and I apologise for this, Wolves. Wolves, whether you like it or not, are a fantastic squad. I can't stand them. I can't stand their guts. I think they're a great team. They play some good football. They have a good manager. As long as we don't lose to them twice, I'd be happy with that. I don't really care how they do. I don't want them to do well, obviously, but as long as we don't lose to them, that's the ideal, because you just can't help how good they are. I mean, I'm looking forward to facing the Portuguese national team, personally. It'll be an interesting test for us. Wolves, they're good enough to make Europa League, and they can raise an atmosphere, unfortunately, which helps them as well. Wolves, 6th. 5th place, the rest of the tale's nearly self-explanatory. I've got Spurs. Now, the reason I've got Spurs is because I just don't think they're good enough to be able to match the top 4. Now, they've got Jose Mourinho, fantastic manager. I do think, however, and I'm calling this now, I think Spurs will win a major trophy this season, or the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup. Now, the reason is that Jose Mourinho has always been a big advocate for the domestic cups. He really values them. He takes the FA Cup as seriously as he takes the Premier League, because to him, silverware is everything. So, Spurs will probably be making serious pushes in cup competitions. They might struggle in the Prem. I think they'll get Europa League because I think their squad's good enough and I think they've got good enough players. I don't think they'll make the Champions League, but Spurs will win a domestic trophy this year. I'm calling that now. So, Spurs 5th, but to win a domestic trophy. 4th, I have got Chelsea. Now, the reason being, a lot of people peg Chelsea to be in the top 2. I just don't think their manager's good enough, personally. I think that their squad's incredible. They made some amazing signings. They've got Malang Sarr, Havertz, Thiago Silva, Timo Werner, Ziyech. Some fantastic signings. But I think I'm not saying Frank Lampard's a bad manager, but I think that he can't compete with the other managers in the league, and I think they'll be slipping up and dropping silly points like they did last season. They'll be a tough team to beat, and I'd take a draw against them and run to the high hills with them on September 28th. But I just don't think that Frank Lampard is a manager that will be able to push them beyond that sort of 4th place. Now, I'm not saying they should get rid of him for a second, but I think if they want to challenge for titles, they need to improve the manager as well. But for now, Frank Lampard is doing a brilliant job, and he can only learn. So he might prove me wrong, but for now, I've got Chelsea in 4th. Now, 3rd. Now, I'm preparing for the harsh comments. I've got Liverpool. Now, the reason being, Liverpool were too far clear to drop enough points to lose the title race, but people were starting to figure them out towards the end of last season. I think that, they lost. They got battered by City after they won the title, and they lost to Arsenal. They drew to Everton and Burnley. They weren't convincing against Aston Villa. They weren't convincing against Newcastle. I think people were starting to figure them out, and I think also they were starting to underestimate people. Now, you could tell Jurgen Klopp he underestimated people a couple of times last season. It didn't happen often, but it was starting to happen. And I think they might underestimate Leeds first game of the season. I think that's why they'll draw. I think that Liverpool dropped a lot more points this season than they did last season. I think that people figured out how to get draws and stuff against them. So Liverpool, I've got to finish 3rd. Sorry, Liverpool fans. 2nd, I've got United. Now, the reason being that United made some fantastic signs. You could see how good they were getting towards the end of last season. I think this is the best United have looked since Ferguson era. I think that they're really, really pushing to win something. I think they'll win a domestic trophy as well. I think they're really pushing hard this season to try and break the top of the table. I don't think they will, but I think they'll finish 2nd. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is doing a fantastic job. I think he understands the United side, and I think United made good signings, and they're going to push forward. So United 2nd, and that's going to raise a lot of controversy, so put your comments down below if you agree. 1st place, Man City. I just think Man City are too good. I think they have a good enough manager. I think the squad's too good. I think that their sort of power off the bench is ridiculous. I think Nathan Ake is going to be a good signing for them. Laporte's back to full fitness. I think that they've got effectively a squad of full fitness. And when their squad is at their best, they're unbeatable in my opinion. I think that Man City will run away with it personally. I think they'll win it by maybe 5-6 points. I think Man City win the league, and I don't see it being difficult for them either. So, Man City to win the league. I hope you like this video. It's somewhat different. You get to know my opinions on things. I guarantee you're not going to agree with most of it. So put your comments down below where you disagree, where you agree. I look forward to seeing people's reactions. I'll see you in the next one. That's coming soon. Thank you. And I can't wait to see Connor's video as well. See ya.